everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amber Rachel. If you're new here, I make videos every Wednesday about motherhood and lifestyle. And today's video is going to be all about how to grow your baby's hair. Between the ages of 2 months and 4 months, my daughter lost a ton of hair and was pretty much completely bald in the back of her head as well as on the sides of her head. So I wanted to go ahead and share some tips with you on how to prevent that for your baby and also how to grow back your baby's hair if it already happened. Alright, so let's go ahead and get right into the video. So first we're going to talk about why my daughter went bald in the first place. Like I said, it started when she was around 2 months old. She had really bad cradle cap. Like, it was all over her head and even in her eyebrows because it was just so bad. And because she had the cradle cap and her scalp was really itchy because of it, she would always take her hands, and she didn't quite know how to actually scratch her head back then. So she would take her hand and she would like rub it on the side of her head where it was really itchy for her. But because she had on the cotton mittens, because again she was still a newborn and still scratching at her face, the cotton from the mittens was completely rubbing her hair out, which caused a lot of the hair loss on the sides of her head. And also another reason, which I don't know if it was just my daughter that did this or if it's typical for a lot of babies to do this, but whenever my daughter would lay on her back and sleep in her crib, she would always shake her head, if that makes sense. She would always just kind of go like that in her crib, and it would just be rubbing the back of her head on the sheets. And honestly, it got to the point where she would do it so much that when I went to pick her up from her crib in the mornings, I could visibly see so many hair strands left on the crib sheets from when she was just shaking her head. And so that's what caused the back of her head to go bald. So she lost the sides from her rubbing it with her mittens, and then she lost the back of it from her shaking her head in her crib. So as you can imagine, she was going bald literally all around the back and the sides, and pretty much only had hair on the very top of her head. And also, even though we did do tummy time with her when she was a newborn, we didn't do, I feel like, as much tummy time as we should have. So also that attributed to the hair loss on the back of her head. And another reason why my daughter was losing so much hair was because of the headbands that I was putting on her. Of course, when I found out I was having a daughter, I was super excited, so I bought a whole bunch of headbands in a whole bunch of different colors to match all of her cute outfits. And every day when I got her dressed, I would add a headband to the outfit. And a lot of the times I'll be using these kinds of headbands, which were kind of like the wrap style headbands. And as you can see, it is a very thick band, so it pretty much would cover up her bald spots on the back and the sides. And so that was kind of another reason why I always put them on her, not only to match the outfits but to also cover up the bald spots on her. But it was just another piece of fabric that I would put on her head in already a troublesome area, and that didn't allow the hair to grow back. So what did I do to stop the hair loss? The very first thing that I did was I got rid of the mittens and I got rid of the headband. So instead of the wrap style headbands, I went ahead and switched her to these headbands, and as you can see, these have a very thin strap, so obviously it was touching less hair on her head. So it wasn't like these ones where it had a lot of fabric that was just rubbing out the back and sides of her hair. And instead of getting her dressed and putting on a headband every single day, what I decided to start doing was to only put on a headband, and only these kinds of headbands, when we were leaving the house. And especially with COVID going on, it was very rare. So she went from wearing headbands almost every single day to pretty much only a few times a month. And so getting rid of the mittens on her hands from when she would scratch and rub the cotton on the sides of her head, and getting rid of those thick headbands that went around pretty much the whole bottom half of her head, that really helped her hair have that chance to start growing back without having something that was constantly breaking it off as it was trying to grow. And it happens to so many babies, and so when I was pregnant, I obviously didn't want that to happen to my daughter, especially because I had super bad heartburn, so I kind of already knew that my daughter was going to have a lot of hair. So I went ahead and bought my daughter some silk bonnets before I had her in hopes that that would prevent her having the bald spot. But when my daughter was born, she wanted nothing to do with those bonnets. She would pull them off, or they would just slide off of her head, or she would move her head around so much that it would just come right off. She hated them. And so for the next few months, I was just kind of clueless because I didn't know what to do since she didn't like the bonnets. I didn't know how else to protect her hair from the cotton and all the other rough materials that my daughter was laying her head on. Because if you didn't know, cotton and a lot of other materials, they cause a lot of friction on your hair when you're moving. So that was kind of the premise behind getting my daughter a silk bonnet, by having her hair to be able to be protected and not rub off from her cotton crib sheets. But since she didn't wear the bonnets, I didn't know what to do. And so for the next couple of months, she just slept on her regular cotton bed sheets, and her hair just kept coming out, and coming out. And then one day, which I don't know why it took me so long to think about it, but then I just realized, what if I get her silk crib sheets? And I really didn't think that they would even make silk crib sheets, so I was trying to figure out how I could make them myself. And then I looked online and I saw that Amazon sold silk crib sheets. So I ended up buying just one silk crib sheet just so I could test it out. And honestly, it was the best thing ever for my daughter's hair, because my daughter still loved to just shake her head when she was laying in the crib trying to fall asleep at night. But because she had the silk crib sheets now instead of the cotton crib sheets, it was way less harsh on her hair, and the hair just stopped breaking off, and she was able to start having her hair grow in. I guess my daughter is going to join us for the rest of the video, or at least part of it. And so don't forget, on top of all of this, from the headbands, from the crib sheets, everything like that, her hair was still falling out because she had the cradle cap. So I went online and I looked up cradle cap shampoos, and I found that Mistela made a cradle cap shampoo, and so we purchased that, and we decided to give that a shot to see how it would work for her cradle cap. We would be washing her hair every night or every other night, which ultimately caused it to dry out even more, which made the cradle cap and the dry scalp and the itchiness even worse. So what we did because of that was stop shampooing her hair so often. So whenever we gave her baths, we just would not wash her hair, and if we did wash her hair, it would be maybe once a week or so, and sometimes we wouldn't even use shampoo at all. We would just rinse it with water. But because we weren't washing it with the cradle cap shampoo anymore, we were still having the issue with the cradle cap. So what I did was I would sit her in between my legs, and I would take her comb and I would just gently scratch the scalp of her head with the comb to remove the cradle cap flakes. She absolutely loved it, and there were so many times that she would just fall asleep sitting with me while I was scratching her hair. Her hair did start growing back, but she was still kind of patchy in a couple places. And also around that time, I was losing a lot of my hair due to postpartum hair loss. So I ended up purchasing a hair growth oil for myself, and then I thought it would be a good idea to use it on my daughter's hair, and I honestly think that backfired. Her hair did start growing somewhat, but then all of a sudden she started having a breakout on the back of her head. So when I took her to the doctor said that she had something called folliculitis, which basically is an infection of the hair follicles. And he said that it came from her hair follicles being clogged from her rubbing the back of her head so much. And it seemed like that made sense because she was still on the back of her head a lot, even with the silk crib sheets and the lack of the headbands. But then I did start to wonder if it could have been because of the... But then I started to wonder if it could have been from the hair oil that I started putting on her scalp. So the doctor ended up prescribing her an antibiotic ointment to go on the back of her head to clear up the infection. And then of course I had stopped using the hair growth oil immediately. So along with the antibiotic ointment that she was prescribed, we were also doing warm compresses. They looked like pimples, so the little pimples just kind of started clearing up on their own. However, for some reason, we woke up one morning and instead of a whole bunch of little pimples, it had formed into one massive pimple, and it was so disgusting. So I called my doctor freaking out because I was like, it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And so the doctor prescribed her an oral antibiotic, and that seemed to do the trick, and we started doing the warm compresses more often, which also seemed to really help. And later that day it ended up draining, and then it turned into a scab, and then it just honestly healed up really nicely from then on. And she's never had that issue again. So I really do kind of think that it was the oil that we were putting on there, but also right after that happened, we started doing a ton more tummy time. And so whenever we were at home and she was awake, she would be on the floor and she would be doing tummy time. So we used 2 different tummy time mats that she really enjoyed. One of them was a water tummy time mat, and it had different animals inside of it that would move around whenever she would push up on it and move the water with her body weight. So she really liked that one, and it also kind of encouraged her to lift herself up so that way she could see all of the animals and everything moving around in the water. And we also had a Fisher-Price tummy time mat, which was very versatile and we loved it, and she honestly still uses it. And if you haven't checked out my daughter's nursery tour, you can go ahead and check that out, and then you can actually see the toy that I'm talking about in her playpen because she still plays with it every single day. But obviously eventually she would get tired of doing the tummy time, but we still didn't want her to just kind of lay on her back if she wasn't doing the tummy time. So we ended up purchasing the Fisher-Price Sit Me Up floor seat, and she loved it. My daughter is super nosy and she wants to sit there and look at everything and everybody so that way she knows what's going on. And so this seat was honestly so perfect for her because she wasn't able to sit up on her own, but the floor seat was able to allow her to do that. And then also for my baby registry, I was gifted the Summer Super Deluxe booster seat, and that also was a really great toy because again it was something that she could sit in and it helped her sit up because she wasn't able to do it on her own. And then it also had a couple different toys attached to it that she absolutely loved. Everything that I talk about will be linked down in the description box below, but hopefully you guys can learn something from my mistakes if you are pregnant or if you're expecting your first child, so that way you kind of know what to expect and what to avoid, so that way your child's hair doesn't fall out like my baby did. And it is a little bit of a slow process. Like my daughter's hair didn't grow overnight, but with the changes that we made, the hair came back a lot quicker than it would have if we never changed anything. So from like 4 months to about 6 months, the back of her head completely filled in, and now her hair is getting super long, and we still keep those things the same to this day. And even now we still follow the same practices so that way her hair will continue to grow. And now her hair is getting really long and really healthy, and we're so happy that her hair is in a really good place right now. Alright you guys, thank you so much for checking out my video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it and learned some tips along the way. If you guys enjoyed it, please give it a big thumbs up, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I hope you all are staying safe and healthy, and I will see you guys next week.